Hey guys, it's Mickey Foley 005, and finally I'm making a real video again, not including that live stream I did a month ago. And this video is actually going to be another horror movie video. I know the last one I did was Annabelle Comes Home review, but in this video, I'm going to be ranking all the Friday the 13th movies from worst to best on Friday the 13th. This is just my opinion, and just so you know, if you're a big fan of these movies, just so you know, this is not a usual type, not usual opinion list as most people. I have a pretty different opinion of most people when it comes to these movies. So there's some of the movies will be in a usual place that you usually expect, but some of them you'll be like, what? Why is that in that spot? But number 12 on my list is Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. A huge problem with this movie is that the title is really misleading. It makes it out to seem like most of the movie is in New York City, but it's actually the last 30 minutes or so it actually is in New York City, and most of that time they just are in alleyways, and it just doesn't really look like New York City. And most of the movie actually takes place on a ship, not to mention that most of the movie, when they are in New York City, actually was filmed in Canada. Other problems in this movie is that it's really boring in my opinion, probably because the characters are really uninteresting and forgettable, except for the boxer Julius, and there weren't many entertaining scenes. There was a few good kills or so, but most of them weren't very memorable or just looked bad. Overall, this movie is not good, and it's probably one of the most looked down upon movies in the franchise. Number 11 is Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. This was originally my least favorite Friday the 13th movie, but I just rewatched it, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as I thought it was, but it's still definitely not a good movie though, and I didn't love it or anything like that. And I was thinking really hard about what movie to put on the bottom of the list, and I chose Jason Takes Manhattan. So both of these movies are really even in my opinion. But if I didn't rewatch it again, I would have put this on the bottom of the list. Anyway, my main problem with this movie is that, kind of a spoiler coming up, is that Jason is barely in this. Instead, he possesses random people one by one, and those random people try to kill other people. I know they were just trying to do something different with this movie, but it just doesn't work very well. It just seemed kind of dumb. One upside to this movie is that if you watch the unrated version, there's one really good kill, but most of the rest of them aren't that crazy. I was kind of surprised to see when I rewatched this that I wasn't really bored like the first time I watched it, but overall I still don't really like this movie that much, just a little bit more than the first time I saw it. Number 10 is the original Friday the 13th. This is where we get into things that are not in the usual, every usual Friday the 13th fan list, but just in my opinion, I just thought it was pretty boring, and it just wasn't much going on in my opinion. It seemed like, and a spoiler coming up, the killer isn't Jason, it's actually Jason's mom. Another thing is just that the character dialogue wasn't very interesting, and the characters themselves weren't that interesting. There was some good kills though, especially if you watch the unrated, uncut version, and the last 15 minutes or so was pretty entertaining, even if the main character Alice was making awful, unrealistic decisions to defend herself against Jason's mom Pamela trying to kill her, and also that Pamela doesn't seem to pose much of a threat considering she's an old woman that can probably be easily overpowered. I know she killed some counselors, but when it's face to face, I think you could probably hit the knife out of her hand or something. Overall, the movie's okay, I guess, but there's definitely better Friday the 13th movies in my opinion. Number 9 is Jason X. I actually don't really dislike this movie. I actually think it's pretty entertaining, but I still know it's not technically a good movie. The premise of Jason in space is pretty cool, but really ridiculous. In some ways, the cheesiness is my favorite part of the movie, and in other ways, it's my least favorite part of it. I don't really know why. Most of the kills in the movie are okay, but there are a few really good ones, mainly the liquid nitrogen face smash kill, which is widely considered to be the best kill in the entire series. Uber Jason was awesome and really overpowered, but I wish he was in the movie longer, but I guess they didn't want to overdo it, I guess. Overall, if you want to watch a movie to have a good laugh and have fun and not take the movie too seriously, this is a pretty good movie to watch. Number 8 on my list is Part 2. I know a lot of people probably expected me to put this higher up on my list, But the reason the movie isn't that high up on the list is that it was kind of boring in my opinion. A lot of people will disagree with me, and that's okay, but it's just my opinion. The main thing that stopped this movie from being too low on this list, though, is that I liked the atmosphere of it, and it felt like a classic Friday the 13th movie, and I liked the main character, Guinea. Most of the kills were pretty watered down because of the MPAA censoring them so the movie wouldn't get an X rating. And also, I know this is before Jason was resurrected and became really overpowered, but he seemed too underpowered and kind of clumsy. It was probably because they didn't know exactly how Jason would move and act at this time, considering this is the first movie where he is the killer. This is also before he wore his iconic hockey mask. He instead has a potato sack on. Overall, I don't think this movie's really bad, I just think it's too slow moving for me. Number 7 on my list is Part 5, A New Beginning. When I first saw this movie, I thought it was pretty bad, but the second time I saw it, I thought it was pretty decent actually. It still has some problems, for example. Spoiler, the killer isn't Jason again, but the movie tries to make you think it is. There's also some really bad characters in it, mainly Ethel and Junior, who are just really forced, unlikable characters. They probably were meant to be, but still. The main positive thing about this movie is that there are a lot of kills. I think that this one actually has the most out of the entire franchise, and some of them are pretty good actually. Tommy Jarvis also returns from Part 4 as a young adult who's the main character in this movie. Number 6 on my list is Part 4, The Final Chapter. I know this is a lot of people's favorite Friday the 13th movie, and some people might be shocked to see that it's not higher up on my list, but I guess I just didn't like it as much as other people did. But that's not to say I didn't like it. I would say it's one of the better movies in the franchise, and it probably has one of the most memorable set of characters, including Tommy Jarvis in his first appearance in the series. Then there were also a lot of memorable kills, probably because Tom Savini returned to do the special effects work since he did them for the first movie. The main thing that stopped this movie from being higher up on my list is that there were too many scenes with a lot of talking that I didn't really care about. Also, does anyone remember when I did an action figure review of Jason from this movie? Number 5 on my list is Part 3. I originally had this movie at the 4th place spot until I rewatched one of the other movies in the franchise, but I still really enjoy this movie. The main thing I like about it is probably the character Shelly. I know some people think he's annoying, but I think he's pretty entertaining. Actually, I'm actually friends with the actor who plays him on PlayStation Network, if anyone didn't know. The kills were also really good, considering that most of them were censored by the ratings board. And this is the first movie in the series where Jason wears his iconic hockey mask, and it was actually taken from the character Shelly. Number 4 is Part 7, The New Blood. I actually just rewatched this movie recently, and I liked it better than the first time I saw it. The first time I saw it, I thought it was okay, but this time I really liked it. I actually almost put it at the 3rd place spot on this list. I really liked the storyline with the main character Tina and her telekinetic powers. It was something different to see in the franchise, and I was kind of surprised to see that I was actually caring about a storyline that didn't have to do with Jason Voorhees in a Friday the 13th movie. And the main character Tina is really memorable in my opinion. One of the downsides of this movie is that the kills were censored hard by the MPAA, so most of them weren't that good. Jason looks great in this movie. That's probably one of the most iconic looks, I would say, and one of the best Jasons looked in the movie. And this is also the first time Kane Hodder ever played Jason. Number 3 on my list is Part 6, Jason Lives. This is my favorite out of the original Friday the 13th movies, and it's mainly because it's just a lot of fun. Just from the beginning, you can tell what kind of movie this is, and it isn't going to take itself too seriously, and it doesn't, but it also isn't a complete joke either. Tommy Jarvis returns for his 3rd movie in a row in the series, and is all out trying to kill Jason, warning people about him. The kills are pretty decent in this movie, even if most of them were censored because the MPA being really strict at the time. Overall, this movie is entertaining and has a fun comedic element to it. And fun fact, the actress who plays the character Megan actually went to high school with my dad, if anyone was interested in knowing that. Okay, so now we're down to the last 2 movies on this list, and I'm just about to warn you, these last 2 are not your usual top 2 picks for your usual Friday the 13th ranking video, so be prepared. A lot of people are going to disagree. I've already warned people in the beginning, but anyway, let's get into it. So number 2 on my list is Freddy vs. Jason. This is a crossover movie, like you all know, with Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and it's a lot of fun to watch, especially the last 20 minutes or so. I know some people don't really like this movie, but there's also a lot that do. Almost everyone can agree, though, that it's awesome that this movie actually happened. Sure, there's some cheesiness to it, I guess, but I think it fits well the feeling of the movie, and it isn't overdone, unlike Jason X, for example. The timeline of the movie can be a little hard to understand, even if you've seen all the movies in both the franchises, but overall, it still makes sense. The story is definitely more complex than your average Friday the 13th movie, but it's expected because Freddy Krueger's storyline is also a part of it. Probably my favorite thing about this movie is just how bloody it is, especially the ending fight scene with Jason facing Freddy, which is my favorite scene in the movie. I just wish that Kane Hodder got to play Jason, but I guess they just didn't cast him for some reason. Overall, in my opinion, this is one of the most entertaining movies in the franchise. Okay, so now number 1 on my list. If you already know these movies, you already know what it is. And so number 1 is the remake or reboot. I know a lot of people don't like this movie, and some people will be shocked to see that this is at the number 1 spot. But to be honest, I just really like this movie. Sure, there's some bad, unlikable characters like Trent in it. I just overall think that this movie is really entertaining and probably has the best set of kills in the entire franchise, especially if you watch the killer cut version of the movie. This remake or reboot didn't just completely copy the original, it basically skipped over all the first movie and summed it up in the opening credits, because obviously in a remake slash reboot of Friday the 13th, people want to see Jason Voorhees as the killer, not Jason Voorhees' mom, so I'm glad they did that. Also, Jason is a lot faster and more agile than ever before and acts as more of a survivalist, which is cool to see. Overall, I just personally like this movie the best out of the entire franchise. I know this isn't a popular opinion, but I guess some people just have different opinions about movies, and that's okay. You know, everybody has different opinions. So I know a lot of people are not going to agree with this list. It's definitely not your usual Friday the 13th ranking list you'd see, because there's a lot of picks that people won't agree with. But yeah, tell me your picks in the bottom of what your ranking is. That'd be cool to see. So thank you everybody for watching. Maybe I'll do this type of ranking thing with other franchises, maybe like Chucky, Child's Play movies, or like Nightmare on Elm Street movies, or Halloween, Michael Myers movies. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.